Hello Redditors, welcome back to Tales Against Humanity. Now, let's get started. In today's episode,
He ruins everything. Rant post. My, 41F. Father, 64M. Ruins literally everything he touches. At the end of 2020, my grandfather who raised me passed away. Because it was 2020, he didn't have a chance that year to have his will amended, and told me when I had seen him at Christmas that he had an appointment for January of 21 to have it done, but unfortunately he passed before then. I explained that to say that when he passed without a will, all of his assets, except an annuity that I was the beneficiary of, defaulted to my dad since my aunt had passed a few years earlier. Multiple houses, cars, land, and lots of money all went to my dad. Initially, my dad acknowledged that had my grandpa made it to that January appointment, everything would have been very, very different, and pretended he was going to do the right thing. I'm not a brat, I'm not spoiled, and all I asked for was the 4 acres of property that my grandparents had set aside and told me my dad, our entire extended family, belonged to me for 26 years. I saw it the first time when I was 14 and was told then and there that it was mine. Looking back, I'm regretting not taking it over while they were still living. I was just never quite ready to settle down, so that's my fault. Since my grandpa passed, my dad has been slowly going back on all the things he promised he would do, to the point that the last time I spoke with him, he argued with me that I shouldn't have the land because when you die your stepdad's kids will get it, meaning my half-siblings, and he argued to the point that I had all of them send him a text message stating that they weren't interested in that land, just so he couldn't use it as an excuse anymore, and he had to admit that he was just a shitty person and never actually intended on honoring my grandpa's wishes in the first place. That was 2 months ago. Last week I went home to my grandparents' house, the house I was raised in, to get the last of my things and say goodbye to my home, just to walk in and see that he has completely destroyed it. My bedroom was filled with trash, the bathrooms were caked in filth and covered in urine. There were broken doors and cabinets and dog shit stains all over the house from him letting his dogs shit on the floors instead of cleaning it up, just leaving it there. And the smell. I live in another state and didn't expect much when I went to the house, but seeing my home that I shared with my grandparents the way that it was made me feel like I'd lost them all over again. He's had enough money and resources to be able to hire a cleaning service and lawn care over the past year, but instead has taken everything that my grandparents worked 70+ years for and has destroyed it. He's bought himself a new house and multiple brand new cars and untold how much in musical equipment, but is too damn sorry and disrespectful to keep our family home at least semi-clean. My grandpa told me the last time that I visited that my dad had ruined the last years of his life. And as I sat on the living room floor breaking my heart over not even being able to say goodbye to my home, because he ruined that too, I decided that all the light I brought into that house would be leaving with me. My friend and I took every single light bulb out of the house when we left. Fridge and oven light included. I've gone completely NC without explanation since then. He doesn't get to ruin me too. If all he wants is everything that has a cash value, he can have it. I have the priceless things, and he can enjoy sitting in the dark. Story 2. Pick your family or your boyfriend. A year ago, almost to the day, I learned I was pregnant. My boyfriend, now husband, and I were excited. We talked about kids one day, but our son decided to join us earlier than expected. It's fine, we love him dearly. My parents, on the other hand, I planned to tell them when I was much further along, that way my little boy would be outside the 12-week danger zone, and I could confidently say I was having a baby. That plan changed with a miscarriage scare and a hospital visit. My baby was fine, but I was scared to death. I got to my car after it all and proceeded to call my mom and break down crying. Now my parents are deeply religious, members of the LDS community. Finding out their unwed daughter was pregnant was quite a shock to them. My mom is also a narcissist, so this was clearly a personal attack to her self-image on my part. She at least was chill with most of it, having gone through 4 turbulent pregnancies herself. So I can say she tried to alleviate my stress a bit. Dad is a whole other story. One day, in between packing up my apartment for storage and stressing about not stressing, he called me to have a serious chat. He started off by telling me he forgave me for my sins, and to give me some advice. Namely, go to the temple, get sealed to my child, and do all their work, baby blessing, baptism, etc., behind my husband's back. Don't let him stop you from receiving your eternal blessings, he'd said. Me. So I should separate my child and their father. Dad, you'll still have your family, and if you so choose you can visit, husband, in the terrestrial kingdom later. Save yourself for the higher glory. Multiple kingdoms of heaven, it gets unnecessary me. But if families are meant to be together forever, why should I separate my child and his father who I love? Dad, only families who live by the gospel standard get to live together in heaven. You'll have to choose between your family and him. I don't remember what was said after this, but I know I was distraught. For a faith centered on families, he was quick to dismiss the one I'm building now. He also doesn't see my marriage as legitimate because we didn't have a temple ceremony and we're waiting to have a full civil ceremony until later. He still bombards me with church propaganda and insists on me getting works down without my husband's approval because baby's eternal soul is more important than husband's feelings. I will add here at the end that my husband and I are choosing to raise our son without direct religion. Let him discover what he believes and support him in it as he gets older. Story 3. My mother's horrifyingly embarrassing behavior in Paris. So my mother inherited a trust fund, or more so, she leached off of her mother's trust fund via threatening her until she bled it dry. One time, I caught her with her hands around my grandmother's throat. My mother was incredibly abusive, manipulative, generally entitled. She refused to work because she thought she was too good for work despite never graduating high school. She isolated me and abused me in multiple ways, enough to catch the attention of CPS. I was in and out of the system until I escaped for good because we became homeless and I entered the system permanently. Anyhow, this is regarding my mother's delusions of grandeur. My mom had a lot of extravagant expenses, ranging from plastic surgery, designer clothes, and travel. And I was meant to be her mannequin, look pretty, not allowed to have any friends or social life, or even to attend real school. I was to be my mother's homeschooled little doll. Anyhow, this is regarding the Paris trip we took using the trust fund money my mom was pressuring my grandmother for. It was my grandmother, my mom and I. But for most of the trip my mom kept me beside her. The trip was a month long. I was 15 at the time, it was a really long flight. The way she acted on that trip was not out of line for her character per se, but was so embarrassing. For instance, she got completely shit-faced at the Moulin Rouge and tried to pull down my top multiple times when we were watching the show. I told her to stop doing that, and she said I was being an uptight bitch. The couple across from us got up and left. Later that evening, she was loudly rapping on the bus and being rowdy. Another day on the trip, she got mad at me for no reason. It was past midnight, and my mother told me to screw off and get out of her sight. I had to find my way to the hotel and hail a taxi late at night, by myself in a foreign country as a 15-year-old girl. She tried to grab a waiter at a cafe's ass and tried to make several open advances on him. He looked so uncomfortable I wanted to hide and scream into a pillow. She attended a nightclub and brought condoms. She came to the hotel room late at night and complained to me about how men weren't jumping all over her. Because of course, all Frenchmen are hypersexual beings, right? Complaining about the amount of Africans in Paris and that Paris is becoming too non-white. Did I mention my dad is a black man from the Caribbean? Complaining about all of the dirty, ugly, fat Muslims, yes. My mom is racist. She was. Complaint that Paris was not the Paris she was expecting, and she was expecting a romantic place full of fashionable white Europeans. Complaining that most people in Paris do not dress like a high fashion street stereotype. Yes, Mom, they're wearing jeans. Gasped. My mom wears white fur coats, bodycon dresses, high heels, huge sunglasses, long bleached blonde hair in a slick-back ponytail with huge gold hoop earrings. I wouldn't exactly call that the Parisian look. If she was expecting every woman to dress like that, then she is mistaken. Ordering a charcuterie platter and wine at a cafe, and insisting that the pâté was cat food. This was really embarrassing. I kept trying to tell my mother it was pâté, but she insisted that it was cat food and told the waiter it must have been cat food. speaking really loudly in English or in broken English to people who most likely didn't speak any English. That one was really embarrassing to be around. My mom would complain that French women didn't show her love and weren't warm and open towards her, and that every man didn't want to fuck her. It's like, no shit, Paris isn't exactly known for being friendly, and I'm sure your behavior is a large part of the fact that no one wanted anything to do with your stupid entitled ways. And men in Paris have a wide selection of women to choose from before they go for someone with such a nasty attitude as you have. My mom had this idea she be worshipped in France because she's indigenous. She's not, by the way, at all, and that the locals would be bowing at her and I's feet because I am mixed race and she is indigenous. I don't know how out of touch you could be to think that you, a loudmouthed, tacky white American woman, would be worshipped by white Europeans in Paris for just existing and having a biracial daughter. Like, ma'am, this isn't some remote tribe in Africa where they're never seen a white person. This is a huge, multicultural city. You're not special or different for being foreign. That trip was awful, mostly due to my mother. But yeah, thought I'd share here because it was so. Yeah, not it. Edit. I just want to clarify I am an adult now. I'm in my 20s. Just sharing cringe from the past. As far as my grandmother, she would refuse to listen to me, constantly enable my mom despite me telling her not to, and also backed my mom when I tried to get me and my grandmother help. Story 4. Kids need a place to park. Teachers, not so much. Got this from my sister today. She is a teacher in a middle school in a rather affluent town. There is a large construction project scheduled for the summer. Indoor work will begin as soon as school closes, so there is a lot of outdoor prep going on. Much of the site, including a significant chunk of the parking lot, has been fenced off. The middle school is across the street from the high school. They too have construction planned and lost part of their parking, including the one lot reserved for students. Last week a group of high school parents came to the middle school principal with a problem. To reward their kids for successfully completing school, they are treating them to new cars. They don't want their kids to park their brand new cars on public streets where they might get dinged or stolen. They wanted the middle school to allocate a handful of spots in their lot for these cars. The principal said that wasn't possible as there aren't enough spots for all the teachers and staff. He suggested the kids park on the street. But by the time school starts, all the good street spots are taken. No surprise there. To alleviate traffic, the schools have staggered start times. The middle school teachers arrive about half an hour before the high school students. Even so, there aren't enough spots for all the teachers, so some of them have to park about 2 blocks away. The parents argued that no one is going to steal some teacher's 9-year-old Toyota Camry, so her son's new Jeep Wrangler should have precedence. Another complained that her daughter looked for a spot on the street that morning, but the nearest one was in front of her own house. By the time she parked and walked the 4 blocks to school, she was late. What's the point of having a new car if she can't drive it to school? The principal politely informed them that any car in the lot without a middle school parking placard will be ticketed and towed. The parents have threatened to appeal to the superintendent and, if necessary, the Board of Education.